Welcome to an episode of Gorilla Sports Off Court presented by Trusted American Mortgage. Trusted American salary-based mortgage consultants want to help you get into a better interest rate and lower your monthly payments. Just go to trustedamerican.com to see how much they can save you today.
Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome to another episode of Off Court. I'm Liv Moods. That's Brandon Krisztal. If you were just watching us, BK. Yep, he wrote it down for me just in case I forgot. If you were just with us for our episode of Off Field, we did a little switcheroony here, but we're still here. We're still talking sports. Specifically, we're talking basketball now. We just got the football out the way. Broncos on a bye, but the Nuggets, pretty packed weekend that they've got. We just watched them play last night, and they fell short against the best team in the NBA right now, the Cleveland Cavaliers, despite, for the most part, having pretty good performance. You don't think they're the best team in the NBA? You were just about to say that. That's what he was about to say.
Well, it's not an inaccurate statement. They are the team with the best record.
Correct. But I guess you wouldn't call the Chiefs the best team in the NFL right now, and they...
Well, they're at least the defending champ. So, I think the Celtics are better than the Cavs. I don't have to think about anybody else in the East. I know what the Bucks maybe can be, but they're not there yet.
Right.
Bucks play the Celtics this weekend, so that could be
interesting.
Fun to see. I think that game's actually tonight too, because I was setting my fantasy basketball lineup. The Bucks are in Boston tonight, and then tomorrow Memphis is in Boston.
Oof, that'll be a good one.
Yeah.
Because the Grizzlies are finding some momentum. They're, obviously Ja Morant coming back. I think there was an expectation that the Grizzlies would look a lot better and be more competitive, and they're finding their momentum right now. I mean, we knew before the season started that the Western Conference was going to be a bloodbath. If you didn't know that, well, newsflash, it's going to be, and it's going to be that way probably all season long. So it'll be very interesting to see how the Grizzlies compare to the defending champs and arguably one of the best, if not the best team in the Eastern Conference in the Celtics.
Well, and that's sort of the same line I was going to go on with. Yeah, the Chiefs, until dethroned, they're not playing great football game in, game out, but they are playing winning football.
Right.
And so you can't dethrone the Celtics until one of their star players is done for the year, and we don't even want to put that out there, or until it seems so obvious that they're just not who they were. Whereas the Nuggets now, 2 years removed from a championship, feel a little different, and they're struggling in areas that they used to not struggle in, to a level that I'm sure is making Michael Malone pull the amount of hair that he has left out. And I'm not trying to say he's balding.
He'll be bald by the end of the year.
Well, maybe, but his haircut his hair length is similar to mine these days, and so there's not a lot of it. It doesn't look like your hair.
How long until you're bald, you think?
Well, I don't know. Right here's kind of bothersome, but probably a couple more weeks at least. With the holidays coming.
If he's bald after Christmas, just don't be shocked.
I don't know if I'm
giving you a warning.
Our friends at Trusted American Mortgage can help me out, then maybe
they can save you some money for sure during this season. So if you need a little hairline
that tends to be my number one.
Whatever,
that tends to be my number one stressor. That and just lots of kids. But the Cavs are talented, and they do have. I think they have the best backcourt because of what. You can't call the Celtics Brown and Tatum a backcourt. That's a fun duo, but you have to credit Derek White and Drew Holiday and KP when healthy and Al Horford. We can go down their list, but the best two guards that play together right now, without question, are Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. We saw it last night, but they do have plenty of help. And they made 22 of 48 threes. So they took almost 50 threes, but they made 22 of them. So when you're going to be able to knock them down at that clip, it's going to be hard to win those games. Nonetheless, the Nuggets were in it throughout, and the Nuggets were terrible behind the line. Not only were they, because they've been 10-11 the last couple of games, they were, I think, 10 of 24 against or 11 of 24, whatever they were. I think they were 10 of 24. The Warriors were 11 of 38. So the Warriors took that many more, and the Nuggets were just a little under 50%, or right around 40%, which is where you want to be. 6 of 24, I don't even have to be that good at math to know that's 25%, and that's not good.
Correct.
So they had a bad shooting night. Joker was obviously good scoring, not enough for you to hit your parlay, but still good. Great on the glass, ties his career high.
But you know what's interesting? They were missing shots that
Everybody
I'm
makes.
going to say this. They were missing shots that feel like a layup because they were. They took 37 layup attempts and only made 15 of them, most of which actually came from Nikola Jokic. I took Nikola Jokic 30-plus points in a parlay. Every other leg hit, of course. And the one leg I didn't stress about before the game started was 30-plus for Nikola Jokic. I mean, the shots that were being missed are very out of character for him. And so I jokingly say they were missing easy layups. They were legitimately layups that were being missed in this Nuggets game last night. And they, at one point, fell short. The deficit was as big as 16 points, I think, twice in that game. They closed the gap. They were down by 1. I think they were even up by 1 at one point.
4.
And this was one of those very frustrating losses that felt like it was self-inflicted wounds going on in this one. I mean, they had it and they were in the game. They fell behind, then they caught up. They were back in the game, and these are the types of losses that I think become very frustrating for Coach Malone, and you can see it in his post-game presser.
He said it.
He's frustrated.
He said that how they lost is more bothersome than that they lost. Losing to a team with the best record in the league, so that's fine. Lots of people have lost to them. They're 20-3 now. Okay, so he's okay with, on paper, saying you're going to go on the road and you're going to lose to Cleveland. I think he can stomach that.
Correct.
It's how they lost. Is they gave up so many three-point attempts, let alone so many went in, and then they didn't match it. Because, yes, they scored 114, but how did they get there? And if you're going to miss as many threes as they did and miss as many layups, if you make 3 more layups and 2 more threes, the game's basically tied. And so it's technically not, because I would put you down by 2, but you're right there. And so those are, and it wasn't that they missed, that one shot that they missed. They missed so many shots for a team that's been really good offensively. I have the parlay that I built yesterday while we were doing off court, and I had Nuggets plus 4.5. That didn't hit. MPJ's points hit. Darius Garland's 20 hit. Did MPJ make 4 threes? How many threes did he make?
MPJ was 3 of 6 for the
so that missed. Nikola Jokic did not score 35 points. He did have 2 threes though, right?
Nikola
No,
Jokic
he was
0
1.
of 3.
Yeah, so that missed. 12 rebounds. Hit that. 10 assists. Hit
Our
that.
best 3-point shooter
MPJ.
was MPJ.
MPJ 6 rebounds. But they were atrocious from behind the line. When you're 6 of 24, and earlier in the week, and I haven't checked the updated stats, but you were the 3rd best offense in basketball. Well, you came close to, I guess, your averages last night in terms of total points, but they weren't connected defensively. That was such a point of contention and a vocal or a talking point for Michael Malone Tuesday pregame, and then kind of the theme throughout postgame. And I kept asking, I asked Michael Malone, I asked Jamal Murray, I asked Nikola Jokic about it. And Nikola's like, well, we still gave up 115 points in their 119-115 win over Golden State. Well, then they gave up 126 last night. And as we were talking about with the Chargers, and I guess it's a whole other sport, but defense travels. Well, bad defense travels too. So they could go, they can obviously go into Washington tomorrow night and then Atlanta the night after and right the ship and feel better about themselves. But they actually need to go out and do it.
Correct.
And we need to see them execute. And to this point, it's been maddening, the defense of late, because we know it's about effort and communication, and they're just not on the same page.
When I watch this Nuggets team play, it does feel like there is one of the weapons that I think they had in their 2023 championship run was their communication. It was their chemistry. It was their synergy, that Nikola Jokic connecting with any player on the floor at any given time during the game was electric. And so there is the aspect of all of this where there does seem to be that lack of communication here between the point guards that are facilitating the offense and the remainder of the team. To me, we saw a little bit of a better performance from, and I get it. You're sick of me talking about Jamal Murray. Well, guess what? Jamal Murray is running our offense. So I'm going to continue to talk about Jamal Murray because he quite literally is facilitating the offense for every single game that we watch this team play. So I'm going to continue to talk about it. And to me, we talked a little bit about his performance, which was, what did he have last game? 18? No.
Last night?
No, not last night. The game before that.
He had 11 or 12 and 3 blocks.
So again, 19 points from Jamal last night. I would love to see him just take a.
That did hit the over. His over-under was 18.5.
It did.
But
It did hit. I would love to see, though, if we're not going to get 25 plus from Jamal Murray, I definitely want to see more than 6 assists. I want to see more facilitation. And I think that what we're seeing a little bit sometimes with Jamal is a selfish style of play where the ball is always in his hands and he is not the most reliable offensive player. Yesterday, when we spoke about this game and we kind of previewed the game, I talked about the fact that it felt like a really good night for MPJ. I took him over 15 points and 2+ threes. He hit both of those for me. He was the second leading scorer behind Nikola Jokic. Nikola Jokic with 27 and MPJ with 24. So this was a really great opportunity for MPJ to kind of find some of his rhythm and his footing. And I did talk yesterday as well about the fact that I think this Nuggets team just needs to prepare to not have that lethal 3-point shooting from Jamal Murray because it's just not happening right now. And I don't know if it's going to happen, but there does seem to just be a disconnect. And then you get Russell Westbrook out there he played 16 minutes. He had 10 points, 3 assists. So in 16 minutes, 3 assists, Jamal Murray, 42 minutes, 6 assists. So I just want to see more facilitation, I think, from
your point guard, your starting point guard, who is capable of having 10 assist games all the time.
Yeah, all the time. So at this point, I'm not even going to keep hounding on Jamal Murray not scoring well. Because I do feel like at this point, I'm beating a dead horse. You know, I think his average this season is looking like it's going to be a 17, 16. You know, his average last season was a little over 18 points per game. I think we're going to see something less than that this season based on the way that it's trending. So I'm not even going to keep hounding on the fact that Jamal Murray is not scoring as effectively and as efficiently as I would like him to. But at this point in time, if you're not going to score effectively and efficiently like we'd like you to, at least have that defensive hustle and at least be facilitating the ball in a way that brings some of that communication back that I think was the Nuggets' biggest weapon in their 2023 championship run. And we're just not seeing that clicking, that synergy, that chemistry. It's just not there as much as I would like for it to be. And I don't know how you change that. Unless there's some locker room. We don't have inside information on this, but it does make you wonder what the locker room is looking like right now, because I felt like something that the Nuggets could always rely on was just the way in which they were constantly playing like a team. And we're just not seeing that translate in games right now. And so it does make you wonder what kind of locker room culture is happening right about now. I would imagine there's frustrations. Every time we see Coach Malone talk post-game, there is obvious frustrations there. And, I turned the TV off the second Katie Wingy put a microphone in front of Jamal Murray's mouth because I knew it was going to be just kind of that energy of we're good. He loves to say it's part of the game. It's a long season. Yeah, I don't really care how long the season is. I want to start seeing some of those things translate because I do know one of the largest issues for the Nuggets last season was their energy, their fatigue towards the end of the year. And so if we're not seeing things click early, I highly doubt we're going to see things click late with this Nuggets team.
Yeah, I don't want to. I guess I'll disagree with you a little bit.
Okay.
I don't just write the season off because these are correctable problems. Jamal becoming more of a facilitator. Mm-hmm. I don't think he's going to jump from averaging 6 assists a game to averaging 10, although he could. He did at times look a little quicker last night than I think he has in other games. Mm-hmm. But as much as we want you to listen to our show, and you obviously are listening to it or watching it, I urge you to go listen. Bill Simmons and Ryan Russillo were here this week, and I saw them Tuesday at the game, talked to Ryan for a little bit, and was texting with them after. They did a live show of their podcast over at the Fillmore, and it looked like it was a fun night. But I listened to that show, a good chunk of it yesterday when I was putting up Christmas lights, and they spent the first 30 minutes on, 25 minutes, 30 minutes on how much they love Joker, which is fun. It reminds Nuggets fans how well he is admired by folks who I think you respect their basketball opinion. Mm-hmm. Both are all NBA voters, so that matters. And then they were talking about things that concern them, and they went a bunch of different directions, but they did bring up Jamal Murray, and they kind of talked through it. And Bill Simmons said that if 10 is, oh, this guy's career is done, I'm really alarmed, he's at like 8.5. Ryan Russillo was a little more conservative, said he's more like 6.5, but he's kind of wired to be like, well, let's wait and see. But Bill said that he didn't like the way, and they were sitting right at the scorer's table. I didn't realize where they were sitting because I saw them halftime and after the game. But they were sitting at the scorer's table, so they're basically on the court, and they can see Jamal's body language. They said just the way he walks, because it does go back to something you brought up yesterday, and we've talked about since he was in Paris. We know he's banged up in the playoffs and was still able to dig deep and make a couple big game winners. Obviously, it wasn't enough to carry them even past Minnesota. Then it looked like he was banged up to some degree, and he said, nope, that's not it. Just, I'm not starting, whatever. It's not going as smoothly as it could. And then he comes into training camp. You're like, well, he looks okay. But there isn't the explosiveness to the basket that we have seen. And we talk about the contrast with he and Russell Westbrook. And so it's interesting to get basketball experts who watch the Nuggets a lot, and I think like seeing the Nuggets play well, criticize Jamal Murray and say some of the same stuff that we've been saying. Correct. Or hear Charles Barkley Tuesday, if you were watching that game on TNT, talk about wasting Joker's prime by not having enough help.
On Monday.
You did say that. You did say that Monday. And so
Monday.
I don't know if Chuck was listening or watching our podcast. I don't think he was, but
maybe he was.
Maybe.
I'm gonna pretend he was.
Maybe he was.
And he's a copycat.
He finally has Instagram, and so while he doesn't follow me, maybe he follows you. I don't know. But regardless, the season isn't lost. These are correctable mistakes, but the concerns, like, I'm not concerned about Jamal Murray's future yet.
Okay.
But the concern about the way he's playing this season and it just kind of being this, because at some point you go from, hey, there's a long season left to, well, every win matters, which we can make that case now as they sit in the 8th seed. But Phoenix now doesn't have KD. He's banged up, so he's going to be out for at least a week. We know that that's going to happen, but you talked about the Grizzlies. They jumped into the 4th spot. The Rockets are the 2nd best team in the West right now. So those are teams that you weren't even factoring in last year. And I understand other teams are going to fall back, like the T-Wolves, who are behind the Nuggets, the Lakers, teams like that. But the wins are going to matter in terms of your playoff seeding. And so will they get it? Not can they get it turned around. Will they get it turned around? That's a fair concern.
Absolutely. I think at this point in time, we can no longer call Jamal Murray the 2nd best player on this team. Because we can't call Jamal Murray the 2nd best player on this team, this Nuggets team can't prepare to have him as their 2nd best player on this team in any game against any opponent this season. I feel more confident putting my efforts and my money and my time and attention towards a Michael Porter Jr., who to me, before the Timberwolves series, where they kind of found an answer to lock him up last year's playoffs, he was the most consistent offensive player to me in last year's postseason before that Timberwolves series, where they found a way to get some big stops on him and kind of keep him under control. But prior to that, he was the most consistent offensive player that we had. And I think we're entering an era now where obviously going to give Aaron Gordon some time to get back. We're still kind of easing him in. There were some minutes that he was on the bench last night, which I was sweating because I had him for 6+ rebounds and he sat at a comfortable 5 for way too long. None of that matters because Jokic didn't score 30 points. But I think as we see this Nuggets team kind of easing Aaron Gordon back into it, we're going to start to see Aaron Gordon shine and play the very physical game that we know he can play, that is ultimately very, very important in the Nuggets' success. However, yeah, I just don't think you can classify Jamal Murray as the 2nd best player on this team anymore. And again, that is no shade. That is no hate to him. That's just what we're seeing unfold. And I want it to be different. I want him to be performing much stronger and become more reliable, that, in the ways that we've seen him be in the past, in the ways that we know he needs to be in order for this Nuggets team to have success this season. But that's just not the reality. That's not where we're at with Jamal. And I'm not sure that we'll get there. So while BK is feeling like not all hope is lost here with Jamal, I'm still feeling optimistic in the sense that he can turn it around. I don't think he is in any rush or huge desire to. And that's the part that concerns me, because I have never once doubted that his skill set is not there. And he's capable of tapping into that at any given moment in a game or in this season. I don't know if he cares enough to tap into it. I don't know if he thinks that his play right now is really an issue. He doesn't seem as stressed and concerned about his play as the rest of us do.
It does feel like there's a level of hubris that is present with him that isn't with the rest of his teammates. Because you look at the rest of the team, and Michael Porter Jr. is showing that he can score not just from three, but he can continue to get to the basket. He's one of the few people that'll take and make a mid-range jumper. Now we know that Russell Westbrook will sometimes, and Jamal Murray certainly used to from the elbow, and just isn't as much. But MPJ doesn't just need the three to score, or just need the three to be impactful, because he is showing that he will rebound more and he will get to the line of scrimmage. He will get to the rack with some consistency. Aaron Gordon, you know what he is and what he isn't either. Really good defender, will knock down threes, will certainly get in that dunker spot, as they call it, and take the feed often from Joker and finish with a dunk or another player. And then the young guys, you know what all of their roles are and what their expectation kind of is of themselves. You're seeing Julian Strawther grow more as a scorer, but I think that's just based on opportunity and comfort. You're seeing Peyton Watson continue to just grow as a player. We know
our bench was getting cooked last night.
We know he's going to get
cooked.
But we know he's going to play active defense, and you know he's going to be active trying to block shots. You know he's going to take some threes, often open threes, and you know exactly what Russell Westbrook is.
Yep.
It's that we know that Jamal has a higher ceiling than all of those guys for now. Julian Strawther may turn into a perennial all-star. I don't know. Same with Christian Brown. Same with Peyton Watson. They may all get there, but they're not today, and they're not expecting that, I don't think, of themselves this year.
Right.
Like, it'll be cool to see Julian Strawther in the first year, second year player, whatever they call that game, the Rising Stars game. That'll be cool.
That'd be awesome.
But CB, who's struggled scoring the ball, is still going to be active, but he's not going to go from, he's at 11 the last couple of nights or whatever it was. 16's kind of been a ceiling. We'll get a 20-point game from him every now and then, but there's not going to be a lot of 30-point games. He's not going to have 2 weeks of 30-point games. He's not going to have 10 30-point games throughout the year. If he has more than 4, I'd be surprised, and if he even gets to 4. So all of that's okay. It's that because of what Jamal makes and because of what his, I think, talent level is, which is higher than the rest of them, he should be able to give you more. And your point about there seems to be no sense of urgency, I don't know if it's a Canadian thing. I don't know if it's just his personality, because SGA is Canadian and he's nonstop too, right? There's never, that guy's looking to kill you every time down the court. And I just don't see that from Jamal consistently.
No, and I've said this a million times. I don't expect perfect performances from even our 5 starters. I don't expect them to be perfect day in and day out. Every time that they take the floor and they are competing against another Western Conference team, I have no expectations of perfection. But if you're not going to shoot well, at least defend well. If you're not going to defend well, at least show some effort and some hustle. And so when more than one of those things are missing from any given Nuggets player, one particularly comes to mind, that's where I have concern. If you're not gonna be here doing what you need to do over here, at least make up for it over here. I used to be the coach of my former high school Palms team, and dance, the way that it works, it's a score system, you know. So if your execution points weren't great, then you make up for it with your difficulty. And if you couldn't get all your points in difficulty, you made it up in your performance quality. And I used to always tell my team, you're not going to be perfect. I know that before we even get to the competition. But if you fall out of your jump or you're not hitting your turn, you better make up for it in the next 8 count. I better forget all about it, because what you did following that mistake was 1, effort, and 2, better than what I had just seen. And so that's where my frustration comes with Jamal Murray and any player on this Nuggets team, because there's a lot of inconsistencies happening right now. And I do think in any given moment when you turn on a Nuggets game, you're going to see a player that's not hustling and doesn't show that effort, unless it's Nikola Jokic or Russell Westbrook. I think CB you could throw in there as well. And as we start seeing Aaron Gordon transition back onto this team from his injury, we're going to see that effort that he brings as well. And MPJ has his moments. And hell, last game before the Cavs game, Jamal had some effort on defense. And again, I spent a lot less time talking about how badly he shot the ball because I knew there was defensive hustle. I sit here and I get frustrated with Jamal, not because I expect him to be perfect. That's an unrealistic expectation. But because if you're not going to do this part of your job, well, then you better make up for it in the other part of your job. Basketball is not just putting the ball in the hoop. There's more to it than that. And so when I see multiple aspects of this game being dropped, because that's what it is. It's not that Jamal Murray can't do it, folks. That is not the problem. That is not the problem. The problem is he can do it and he's not. That's where my frustration is. It's not that he can't. It's not that they need to move on from Jamal Murray because he doesn't have what it takes. He has what it takes. That's why I get so frustrated. I've seen him do it more than once. We've all seen it. So when it's just a lack of urgency, because it is early in the season, you know what? Let the reporters, the podcasters, the fans with an opinion on Twitter, we'll talk about how long the season is. But I don't want to hear those words come out of any of the Nuggets players' mouths again during a post-game presser. It's a long season. Well, guess what? That San Antonio Spurs game at the end of last year shouldn't have mattered, and it did. Why? Because you dropped games at the beginning of the season that you didn't need to, I guess, against tough Western Conference teams. Dropping that first game against the Grizzlies was unnecessary. Dropping that game against the Pelicans was unnecessary. And guess what? Down the stretch, later in the season, in this long season that you love to talk about, it's going to bite you in the ass. So for now, let's just fix the problems at hand and not keep relying on the fact that, oh, we're only 20 games into an 82-game season. I don't care, because these games will matter, especially given the nature of how competitive the Western Conference is and will continue to be all season long.
I want to go back to your cheer competition analogy or dance. I don't understand the scoring, but how many more points do you get if you execute the Fountain of Troy?
What the hell are you talking about?
From that movie, Fired Up.
He's trying to, you see how he sets me up to fail? He knows I don't know what the hell he's talking about.
You never saw the movie Fired Up? It's literally a movie about cheering in high school.
Oh,
yeah.
I've seen the Fountain of Troy, though. I don't understand.
The big dangerous move that they're not even allowed to talk about, let alone do. And so I was curious.
Well, I will tell you, in the world of cheer specifically, because dance and cheer are very different, they do have certain stunts and tumbling passes that are illegal because they're dangerous. So
not so much in dance.
You actually could just get like a point deduction. And in the world of dance, like first to fifth place can be a matter of like 0.6.
What's the degree of difficulty? Well, how do you increase degree of difficulty? What are harder dance moves than? Instead
of doing a double pirouette, you do a quad. You do 4 instead of 2.
In the air?
Stuff like that.
Or just on with
your pirouette's when you turn.
Right. So you do 4 in a row?
Yeah, like 4 in a row. No stop.
You can do it in the air in hot or in ice skating. Right.
You're mixing sports.
I understand that. I'm saying in dancing, just spinning around 4 times.
He says just spinning around, like he would be able to do it.
I guess 4 would be more than 2.
Yes, it is.
I don't know. You're gonna have to show me later.
I'm not showing him anything later. I am a retired former dancer. I've danced for 20-something years, but I am fully retired at this point.
We're gonna continue to get the same sort of comments as we're getting right now. One from Joey that we have there on the screen. That I wish we traded him when we had the chance. Now Jokic's prime is cooked.
I wouldn't say it's cooked. I'm not there yet. I'm not there in thinking that Nikola Jokic's prime is cooked. Do I think that we are entering a phase of this Denver Nuggets team where if the athletes around Nikola Jokic don't start stepping up, we're going to start wasting some of his prime? Yeah, I'm already feeling like we're wasting some of his prime. And I would imagine if I feel that frustration, as cool, calm, and collected as Nikola Jokic is, there's going to be a point in time where he feels frustrated. I go back to, there's probably some truth to the fact that Nikola Jokic was pushing for Russell Westbrook. Why? Russell Westbrook's not perfect. He wasn't draining threes the year before we acquired him. He wasn't lights out. He wasn't scoring 25 plus, because that's not what Nikola Jokic cares about. I think Nikola Jokic just wants people around him that are playing foot to gas, full throttle 100% of the time to relieve himself of having to carry the team on his back. And so there probably is some truth to Nikola Jokic fighting for Westbrook, because get me somebody that's going to show up day in and day out, motivate the team, and I don't have to constantly be the one that's coming off the bench after a 2-second rest to play 40 plus minutes because my team can't figure out how to do anything without me on the floor. I mean, as great as Nikola Jokic is, that's got to be a frustrating process. So I don't think his prime is cooked. I think there is still a lot of prime left to watch with Nikola Jokic, but I do think if they're not careful, they're going to get a very frustrated version of Nikola Jokic, who, if you guys think that he doesn't care about basketball now, keep him on a team with people that don't care around him, and I think we'll get to the non-caring version of Jokic a whole lot faster than we initially anticipated. So I don't think his prime is cooked, but I do think if we're not careful, we're going to be wasting away some very valuable years of his career because, like I've said before, I think Nikola Jokic would be okay to pack it up right now. I'm not saying he wants to. I'm not saying he's going to, but I think he has gotten the MVP award. He's got the ring. He's got a beautiful family. And this is the type of guy that in the offseason just likes to jump off the radar and live his life. So
yeah, whatever he's doing is working. Russell Martin says Malone's never developed a player. Well, I don't know if that's true because Nikola Jokic wasn't an MVP when he got him.
Mm-mm.
Like Russell Westbrook is a fully finished product. Even Aaron Gordon, they've maybe found better ways to use him and asked different things of him than was asked of him in Orlando. When you're the number 4 pick, they're going to ask things of you differently. When you're the 4th option on the team versus being a guy that they use the top 5 pick on. Jamal Murray, if you want to say that he's kind of the same that he's always been, I think some of that's on Jamal Murray. And we've heard Michael Malone challenge him, and that kind of goes back to the conversations that we just keep having. Jamal is who he is, and getting him to be more than what we've seen is a challenge.
Best way to challenge Jamal is to punish Jamal, which means pull him out of the starting lineup.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be a permanent decision, but Jamal Murray continues to play lackadaisical, nonchalant, I don't really care basketball because he knows he can. And he's still going to get a max contract, and he's still going to be a starting 5 member of the Denver Nuggets. Pull his ass and let him have a few minutes to understand what's going on, to see Russell Westbrook cook. Because guess what? When Russell Westbrook was in his starting position while he was out with a concussion and was cooking the Oklahoma City Thunder, that next game when Jamal Murray was readily available to play was his best game this season. That is not a coincidence. That is not a coincidence that he watched somebody in his starting position and said, ooh, I don't really like the way that looks because he's looking pretty solid right now. So pull him. Take a load off of Jamal Murray right now so he can figure out what kind of a mental state he's in, how to find his groove, and to be motivated. But he plays this lackadaisical type of basketball right now because he knows he can. And he just got paid. So he's not worried. He's not. There is no sense of urgency from Jamal because why would there be? If I were a little kid and my parents kept saying, don't do that, and there was no punishment besides a finger in my face, I'd keep doing it.
Sounds like my little kid sometimes.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Anyway, I'll chill.
I just don't think they're going to, we talked about this yesterday, I just don't think they're going to get to that point until they have to. But we'll see what happens over these next couple games. And then they're going to have some time off again, if I'm not mistaken, right? They go. So
is it going to take this Nuggets team hitting rock bottom? Genuinely.
I guess I don't know exactly what rock bottom looks like. Like
to be honest, I feel like we're getting there.
Well, and that's showing you how spoiled you are by having you've got the best player on the planet.
Of course.
I'm not saying you shouldn't be spoiled.
But you just said it. We have the best player on the planet, and we look disheveled as hell right now. I mean, this was a Nuggets team that with Nikola Jokic on the floor at any given moment, you knew you were good for a win. I don't feel that same confidence anymore. And I'm not saying, again, there are many games that this Nuggets team can figure things out, but the way in which this Western Conference looks right now is we don't have time to be figuring out in the middle of games how to get a win. You need to know that beforehand. You need to know that before you even get there. Okay.
It does boil down, though, I think, and this is why I think Michael Malone is so frustrated. His defense is about effort and communication.
Yep.
So that's solvable.
Yep.
But it's not about solving it in game as much as it just needs to be a constant conversation. And I think that it is. We're not on the road with the team. We're not on the plane. We're not in the team hotel. We're not in their meetings. I don't think he is getting down the road on too many other topics or going off on tangents beyond harping on the defense and maybe tweaking the offense here and there where it needs to just be fine-tuned because something wasn't executed exactly. But all the teams kind of have the same plays. I understand you're going to execute them a little differently with different players offensively. And defensively, there's only so much defense you can play. It's not like the NFL where you can vary it a number of ways. There's 5 guys and you have 5 guys. You can't play much of a zone even though you can a little more than you used to be able to, you still have to kind of be near a player,
Mhm.
or you're still going to get called for defense for 3 seconds. So it really does become about that connectivity that we hear him harp on. And that was one of the other things that he touched on was that, and you talked about it off the top on this show, that you have too many players playing for themselves, that they're not playing for we, they're playing for me. And before they used to play for we. And I get that that's kind of cliche stuff that coaches get into. But when you've been a championship team pretty recently, this isn't Michael Malone looking back to a decade ago.
Right.
Or Bill Belichick and Tom Brady talking about the good old days when they won those first few championships and had that stretch where they were obviously competitive, went to a couple Super Bowls and didn't. It's not that. It's
Right.
we were just there 2 years ago. We were in the mix last year. We can be in the mix again this year. And maybe that's a good place to kind of end on was a conversation that I had with Scott Hastings the other night at the game, and he was doing the game on radio because it was on TNT, but about regardless of where they finish, and I say regardless, if you're 7 to 10, your life's a lot harder than if you're 6 or higher. But then only a handful of teams can still truly win the championship. And so it's a conversation you'll have in every sport. Like as good as teams are playing or young teams, like are the Rockets winning a championship this year? No, even though they're the number 2 seed in the West, they just aren't. Could Oklahoma City take that jump? Sure. Could the Grizzlies? Probably not. Can the Warriors still get there? I don't know if Steph and Draymond alone can get the rest of these guys.
Right.
Although they still have, between Wiggins and Kuminga and Looney, they still have guys that won a ring just a couple of years ago. Can the Suns? I don't know. The Clippers? James Harden's never done it, and he's on his own now with Norman Powell. The T-Wolves? They have their own just issues. Wemby and company, they're not where OKC is. They're more like where the Rockets are, and they're technically in the 11th spot right now anyway. And the same within the East. Can the Cavs this year win it? I guess if they continue to go on this run and shoot like this, but I still want to see it in the playoffs. Can the Celtics again? Sure. Can the Bucks? Yes, because Giannis and Chris Middleton have, and Brooke Lopez now they're dragging Dame along. And I say dragging, but can the Heat? They've been on the cusp. So I think they could in the right situation with the way Tyler Hero's playing. But the point is, the Nuggets have a club in their bag that most teams don't have, and that's understanding what it takes down the stretch and in the playoffs. But if you shoot yourself in the foot so many times that you're just having to scratch and claw to get into the playoffs and have to deal with the play-in BS, that changes things because then you're the road team in every series.
Do you want to know what I think this season is making very clear to me? Amongst many things. But I think what is becoming the most clear to me in this moment, as it pertains to the Denver Nuggets, is we know that when we lost KCP, any true basketball watcher or fan of the Denver Nuggets knew that losing KCP was going to cause some issues. We had lost Bruce Brown. That caused some issues. Losing KCP we knew was going to be a problem. But more than just losing the 3-and-D veteran that was pretty reliable for this Denver Nuggets team, because CB to me has stepped into KCP's role, and maybe he's not all the way there with where KCP was for this Nuggets team, but he is doing a damn good job at what he was brought on this team to do as a starter for the Denver Nuggets. I'm very happy with CB. I think the ceiling is very high, but more than losing the 3-and-D guy in KCP, based on this season so far, it feels like they lost an accountability coach. I think KCP in so many ways was the voice of reason in a locker room. He was a leader. We knew that. We've heard stories a million times by Nuggets reporters and people very close to the team that KCP played that role very well. Of course he did. He was a veteran. He's been on many teams and many different cultures, and you could see his leadership in just the way that he played. Not only did he lead by example, but I think he also was the voice of reason in many ways. It would not shock me if we found out that KCP was not only the leader in what he said and how he played, but also in holding players accountable. Because when we lost KCP, we didn't just lose the 3-and-D guy. It seems like we lost the glue guy. In so many ways, you could argue that Nikola Jokic is a glue guy because of just the way he plays basketball and the nature of which he is a superstar in every single level. And we watch this Nuggets offense go from the worst when he's not on the floor to the best when he is. So we know that about Nikola Jokic's game. But I think KCP was the glue guy for the Denver Nuggets. And the way that there's just, it seems to be a lack of accountability and a selfish me, I game versus a we game. I think KCP was far more important to the culture of this team than we even knew. The 3-and-D guy, that was a tough loss. Of course, we knew that was coming. But I think there were a lot of aspects of KCP being on this team that we're starting to see just how important he was behind the scenes as he was on the floor.
We'll see how these next couple games go. Again, Washington's not very good. Atlanta is better than they've been at times. They're not great, but they're a game over 500, so they're kind of right where the Nuggets are. And so they get DC. They're in DC tomorrow night, and then shoot down to Atlanta on back-to-back on Sunday. And then they'll practice later in the week, so we'll get a chance to talk to Mike Malone then. Let's see how this goes. But that is an interesting question, and it might have to wait until the next time they lose a tough game. Or if he continues to talk like this, ask about accountability. Because one thing he always talks about is leadership, and he says it can't just always come from him. And we know that Russ is getting in guys' faces, and that Joker certainly will. But despite Russ's resume, he can't be the person holding guys accountable to the degree you need him to be in the locker room, at practice all the time. I'm not saying you can't have a standard. And DeAndre Jordan doesn't play enough to be that either, and that's not really DJ's personality. And so I think that is where not only KCP is lost or is missed, Jeff Green is missed, and maybe to a lesser degree Bruce Brown, but certainly Jeff and KCP. And so I think that is fair. And so when you hear Mike Malone say, "Oh, Nikola Jokic has to hold guys accountable. Jamal Murray has to be a leader." I don't know if Jamal has those leadership traits. I'm not saying he won't be a guy that says, "Hey, let's all go do this. Let's all go grab dinner. Because I do think he has some of that. It's, you need to be doing this better. Oh, and I think some of that is because of the type of personality he has and the type of player that he is. If you're not going to do those little things every single night, all the time, it's hard to demand that of your teammates.
Correct. There was actually nothing more frustrating to me than when I was on the dance teams, both in high school and in college, and I would have like one of the captains that was on the dance team with me giving me constructive criticism while they like sat down or weren't doing it themselves. Or like there is a sense of leadership is, I think, the most well received when you lead by example. It's like, hey, I'm asking you to do something that I also am going to do. So to expect Jamal Murray in this season to be a leader, it's not likely. He's not leading by example right now. I think Jokic is a leader. And I think bringing Russell Westbrook to this team as a 17-year vet who we know is a triple-double machine and has had a very successful stretch in the NBA, that you can expect him to be a leader. But there's also the level of, hey, I do think sometimes just based on the way he responds to certain questions, I don't know if Jamal Murray really loves Russell Westbrook being here. I'm not saying he hates it. I don't know if he loves it. I mean, would you want the guy coming off the bench running the second unit to be playing better on both sides of the floor than you? Probably not. I don't think he enjoys that. But again, tough. Tough. Play better or stop complaining, and I don't know if he's complaining. That's me making an assumption here, but I don't know. I think that's what this Nuggets team is lacking amongst many, many things is that leader that can hold the guys accountable. I'm sure there's a lot of frustrations amongst the Nuggets in Jamal not showing up or doing what he needs to do, or the inconsistencies or the lack of effort and hustle on defense. But is there somebody in the locker room outside of Coach Malone that is holding players accountable? I think that person was KCP. And I think since we lost him, we're seeing just how important he was, not just on the court, but off the court. Honestly, more importantly, off the court. So I don't know. There's a lot of games left for this Nuggets team to figure it out, and hopefully they do. But it is very normal to have frustrations. We're not going to sit on this show and just blow smoke up behinds of athletes that we don't feel like are giving 100% effort. Again, never expect perfection. But if the effort is also lacking, in addition to the stat line, now we've got a problem. And that seems to be the problem. So, okay.
Well said.
This holiday season, save some money with our partners at Trusted American Mortgage. You can either scan the QR code right here on the screen, or if you're just listening to audio only here, you can head to trustedamerican.com to see what kind of money they can save you this holiday season, help you get better interest rates, lower your monthly payments, and right now they will cover the cost of your appraisal up to a $650 value. You could potentially not make any payments until February. So head to trustedamerican.com or scan scan this QR code for convenience and see what kind of money they can save you this holiday season. BK, this has been another Guerrilla Sports Off Court, talking all things Denver Nuggets, and we will have some post-game live reactions for you following tomorrow night's game as well as Sunday night's game. The Nuggets have a pretty packed weekend. Pretty nice considering the Broncos don't play. So we'll be able to give the Nuggets our undivided attention, and we will have some post-game lives for you as well as shows throughout next week. It's a long season, which means there's going to be a lot of off-court episodes with myself and BK. So tune in to all things Guerrilla Sports. Give us a follow, give us some likes, reshare, send to your friends, subscribe to our YouTube, and we will see you very, very soon. Go Nuggets!